Welcome to the Laughter Clinic podcast with comedian and suicidologist Mark McConville, bringing you practical, evidence-based self-care strategies, the latest research in mental health, along with conversations that inspire, educate, and entertain. This is the Laughter Clinic podcast with your host, Mark McConville.
Hey folks, Mark McConville here. Thank you very much for joining me on this episode of PLOS, where I share with you 5 insights from around the world in the field of mental health, suicide prevention, and humour and laughter, and what's been going on. So we've got 5 great stories for you in this episode. First, I'm going to have a chat about the National Mental Health Commission's 2024 report card. So I've got some stuff to share from that. That's been authored by David McGrath. David is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Mental Health Commission, so that's pretty cool to come from David. We're also going to have a chat about 3 overlooked warning signs of suicide. Okay. We're going to have a quick chat about that. We're going to have a talk about why being funny as a parent is important and why what that looks like and how your kids can benefit from that. It's quite a cool story, that, actually. I haven't seen that sort of research come out before. Humour in parenting, does it have a role? Well, yes, the research shows that it does. And then after that, we're going to have a chat about comedians using laughter as a tool for suicide prevention coming out of the United States. Is a fantastic story that's recently come to my attention. Very excited to share this with you. And then we're going to wind it up with talking about a new Bradley Cooper film that is coming out at the end of the year that has stand-up comedy as a main theme. So lots to get through. So let's go into insight number 1. And this one was published on the 1st of September 2025. The headline reads, my friends, Insights from the National Mental Health Commission's 2024 report card. And I've got to tell you, the news is not great when it comes to this. And if you live in Australia, none of this information is really going to surprise you, to be perfectly honest. The National Mental Health Commission's 2024 report card, released in July this year, shines a spotlight on the urgent need for a more coordinated and equitable mental health system in Australia. Well, like I said, if you live in our country, that is not going to surprise you at all. The report card helps us take the pulse episode of Australia's mental health system, measuring its successes and shortfalls. The finding reveals a system that is under pressure. While life satisfaction and psychological distress remain steady, this is interesting, Australians' sense of control over events in their life has declined from 75.8% in 2019 to 71.3% in 2023. Australians' sense of control over events in their life, that's an interesting metric to be measuring. Young people are at greater risk. Obviously, we know about the stresses. Young people are under, young adults aged 18 to 29 continue to report significantly higher levels of psychological distress. We know this. A lot of this trend comes from reflecting growing worries amongst young people, including about financial security, concerns about climate change, other life changes that affect their mental health and well-being, and obviously as they enter into the workforce and the impact of AI and cost of living pressures are having a profound impact on mental health. This is in Australia. The proportion of people struggling to cope on their current income has doubled. This is a really glaring statistic, this one. So let me read that again. The proportion of people struggling to cope on their current income has doubled from 17.1% in November 2020 to 34.6% in January 2024. Women consistently report higher levels of financial stress than men. This is not, that's really not good. We need to do better, people. We really do. The financial strain is directly affecting the access to care. Of course it is. In 2023-24, more than 1 in 5 Australians delayed or avoided seeing a health professional due to costs. 1 in 5 people avoiding seeing a health professional due to costs. For a psychologist, psychiatrist, and other mental health profession, this figure rises to nearly 1 in 4 people not seeing a mental health professional due to cost. This report from David goes on to talk about GPs often being the first point of contact for patients experiencing mental health challenges. They also remain the most common provider of mental health services. Seeing a GP straight off is obviously that's where things start. And if you don't have a great GP, find one, because having a great GP is like it talks about here, the first point of call. And if you can't afford to get in to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, having a good GP at least is you find someone that bulk bills, get on the Medicare system, and at least you've got something. He talks about here, people experiencing mental health challenges are often left to piece together care from disconnected services. The lack of consistent pathways leads to delays, duplication and distress for those seeking support. Like I said, we need to do better here. Planning for a better future. While more people are accessing treatment than in previous years, the service levels fall short of targets set out by the National Mental Health Service Planning Framework. So, they can talk about it, but, is it actually getting done? So he finishes up here. We talk about the mental health is a national issue that demands actions from all levels of government. I love that he puts that, all levels of government. We can have the federal policymakers in Canberra and the state politicians talking about budgeting and mental health expenditure, but community engagements, local government, putting on community events, bringing people out and creating that sense of local community, because that's what really, really helps. We know in suicide prevention, community engagement is the first port of call, especially when you've got, if you've got people that aren't able to go and connect with mental health professionals. Like when I travel around regional Australia, if you're living in a little mining town or an outback town, you don't have access to mental health professionals, or you don't have the financial ability to be able to access professional mental health services. So what I say to people is your community that you live in is the first port of call for looking after each other. So, and that doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost anything to be part of your community. And it doesn't cost anything for self-care to look after yourself. And it also doesn't cost anything to reach out to someone. If you feel as though you're struggling, or, you know someone in your life who's going through some hard times, reaching out to them, it does not cost anything to show compassion and care for one another. He goes on to finish up here. Everyone deserves fair access and the right to mental health care, no matter where they live or how complex this system may be. Once again, this has come from David McGrath, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Mental Health Commission. And I will actually put in a link to both this report and also a link to the National Report Card 2024 that he is actually referring to. So I'll put that in the show notes. Right. So now let's move on to insight number 2, my friends. Insight number 2, as I said, we had World Suicide Prevention Day recently. So I just want to talk about a story that came out on Psychology Today, on the website Psychology Today. This was posted on the 30th of August, 25, so a few weeks ago now. But I like this one because it talks about 3 overlooked warning signs of suicide. And these are quite often overlooked warning signs. People who complete suicide can often leave survivors wondering what they missed. We've all heard that time before. What did I miss? What did I not pick up on? Paying attention to risk factors is not enough, right? So let's talk about this. Let's go into what he talks about here. And once, as I said, this is reviewed by Margaret Foley, Anthony D. Smith, LMHC. Okay, I don't know what LMHC means, but anyway. Now, as a reminder, my friends, warning signs aren't the same as risk factors or psychosocial risk factors. Risk factors are traits. They're characteristics conducive to suicidal activity. Proneness to depression, poor impulse control, a history of suicide. Whereas warning signs, on the other hand, are indicators that there is a momentum towards suicidal activity. First one they mention here is if someone is clearly depressed or has been depressed for a while and they have, been struggling, but all of a sudden somehow they miraculously improve. All of a sudden, bang, out of the blue, they feel fantastic, everything's great. It is quite possible that they may have made up their mind that their suffering is about to end, right? Giving levity to their demeanour. This is why it's an overlooked warning sign. Someone's been depressed for a long time and then all of a sudden out of the blue they feel fantastic and everything's great and they're happy with everybody. You know, as it says here, it is quite possible, but they have made up their mind that their suffering is about to end. So suicide prevention, incredibly complicated. Okay, so but we just need to be on the lookout for everything, you know. So the second one, someone being more generous than usual, especially regarding sums of money or prized possessions, may be a red flag. If all of a sudden people start giving away things that they cherish, or they're, you know, giving away money or whatever it is, that could be a warning sign as well, you know, leading up to a suicide. And it says here, note, while it isn't unusual that elderly people start giving their things away, it shouldn't be taken for granted that their giveaways are always benign, particularly if they have risk factors and or these giveaways occur in a concentrated period of time. So, as I said, it's complicated. Suicide prevention pays to look out for everything when it comes to warning signs. Number 3 on the list here is if someone becomes interested in estate planning, life insurance, or pre-planning a funeral. That in itself could be a way of signalling that they are trying to be courteously getting their affairs in order for those people that are left behind. So, as said, incredibly complex, pays to look out for everything. And I like the fact here, even if it's a false alarm, no one is left wondering, what did I miss? Okay, pays to be vigilant, pays to be on the lookout. And that's the thing, is being aware of the people in your life, being aware of any change in behaviour, change in demeanour in your friends and your family and your co-workers, and, you know, paying attention to what they're going through. And, you know, like I said, if it's a false alarm, at least you've done something, you've been actively contributing to suicide prevention by looking out for these things, and you're not going to be left wondering, what did I miss? All right, so let's go on to insight number 3. Insight number 3, my friends, I really like this. This is an interesting story, this actually, because I haven't seen research in this one before. So this is an article that is from the Times of India. And they are actually referring to a study that was done in the United States last year. So this article was published on the 21st of September, so only a couple of days ago. Being a funny parent. Being a funny parent is the best hack. 3 tips to add humour to your parenting. What an interesting look at parenting this is. A recent study in PLOS, which is PLOS, reveals that parental humour significantly strengthens family bonds and positively shapes children's perspective of their parents into adulthood. Interesting, you know, and as I will actually put up the link to not only this article, but the article that they're referring to, the research article. Funny parents are viewed as more effective, approachable, loving, fostering resilience and connection. Incorporating playfulness and self-deprecating humour can create lasting memories and teach valuable coping skills. Well, that's the big one, teaching valuable coping skills. Researchers noticed that while plenty of studies have explored the role of play in child development, there has been little focus on humour specifically. To dig deeper, they asked adults to reflect on whether their parents used humour at home and how these experiences shaped their relationships later on in life. The results were overwhelmingly positive. Well, of course they were. You know, humour's the best. Humour, laughter, the best medicines. Adults who grew up with parents that used humour described them as more effective, more approachable, and more loving. In other words, funny parents are often made for stronger family bonds. Funny parents often made for stronger family bonds. Interesting, that one. So, you know, my mum was pretty funny, I got to tell you. She was the joke maker in our house, which was pretty cool. So anyway, let's talk about here tips to add humour to your parenting, right? It says here, not everyone feels like a natural comedian, but the good news is that you don't need to master stand-up comedy to weave humour into family life. Brilliant, right? So these are 3 pretty practical tools here. Number 1, play more. Play more. Now, Patel, which is the suggestion here, has come from parenting expert and psychologist Reena Patel, agreed and explained it can really help kids' perspective and help with seeing their parents seeing things in a positive light. Watching a parent inject humour into stress teaches children a lifelong skill of how to reframe challenges and keep perspective. Brilliant. This is from psychologist Reena Patel. So, Reena Patel suggests that even if you are not a jokey type of person, simple play can be enough. Getting on the floor, joining your child's imaginative games, and letting go of adult seriousness. The laughter will flow naturally. Brilliant. That's number one. Tip number two, be the butt of the joke. Kids love flipping the power of balance. Putting something silly on your head, tripping over your shoelaces in an exaggerated fashion, doing physical kind in some way, mispronouncing something on purpose. A little self-deprecating humour goes a long way. And I will say that, having had to entertain kids over the years, doing kids shows and stuff, they're 100% right. And number three, pick your moments. Pick your moments. Humour is one hat amongst many. Kids also need to model seriousness, empathy and discipline. Mixing the right balance shows them that life has both silly moments and serious ones that both matter. Very, very cool. So that's the report from the Times of India, going actually into the research study that they did. And as I said, I'll put both links up. So the study is a research article, Humour in Parenting, Does It Have a Role? We have the authors' names here, Lucy Emery, Anna Libera, Eric Lehman and Benjamin H. Levi. So this was published 17th of July 2024. So yeah, last year, but interesting that it's in the news now. So they're the authors. Now, this is a peer-reviewed article. So the background in the abstract: despite the wide use of humour in social interactions and the considerable literature on humour in multiple fields of study, the use of humour in parenting has received very little formal study. The purpose of this pilot study was to gather preliminary data on the use of humour in the raising of children. Very cool. Materials and methods: they administered a 10-item survey to measure people's experiences being raised with humour, with the views regarding humour as a parenting tool. Result. Right, now there's all different percentages in here, okay, but I'm just going to read you the results, okay, so it just reads better so the respondents, which is 312 people in this study, predominantly identified as male, and they were between the ages of 18 to 45 years of age. The majority of participants reported that they were raised by people who used humour in their parenting, and they believe that humour can be an effective parenting tool, and in that capacity has more potential for benefit than harm. Either use or plan to use humour in parenting their own children, and would value a course on how to utilise humour in parenting. That's something interesting. Who would value a course on how to use humour in parenting? Might have to look into that. Significant correlations were found between the use of humour and both A, the quality of respondents' relationship with their parents, and B, assessments of how good a job their parents had done. Interesting. So the conclusions in this pilot study: respondents of childbearing age reported positive views about humour as a parenting tool. Interesting, my friends. So the link will be in the show notes. Humour in parenting, does it have a role? So might want to have a check that one out if you're interested. Right, that's insight number 3. Insight number 4, pretty excited about this one. This was shared with me from a retired police officer that I've been doing some work with here in Queensland. And what a fantastic news article to come out of the PBS News Hour in the United States. This was published 15th of September 2025. And the video is: comedians use laughter as a new tool for suicide prevention. Now, I will put in a link in the show notes to both the YouTube clip from the PBS News Hour and also the link to the website that they are referring to. And the organisation they're referring to here is called 1 Degree of Separation. What an amazing initiative this is, a suicide prevention training program combining comedy with life-saving education. Like, I mean, seriously, I found this and I was so excited. I was like, wow, these guys are swimming around different parts of the same ocean as what I'm doing. So with the Laughter Clinic. So here we go. On the website, 1 Degree of Separation, our suicide prevention training program combines comedy with life-saving education through humour, personal stories. Our program provides essential mental health first aid by demonstrating what an open, supportive conversation looks like. This interactive approach helps individuals feel more confident and prepared to offer immediate support. In the States, this is awesome. I've actually reached out to these guys. I've sent them an email, waiting to hear back, because I tell you, I'm really excited at the possibility of, collaborating with these guys in some way, shape or form. But, other than that, I just really wanted to congratulate them in their email in relation to the work that they're doing and the fact that I find it very exciting. So this is how it looks. The first segment of the show that they do is an introduction and a brief family-friendly comedy set from each of the 4 comedians. This introduces the audience to each comic, letting them shine in their element and change the brain chemistry with laughter and humour. That's obviously for the people in the audience. And then next, the panel of 4 comedians join together on stage to answer and discuss the 5 questions. This is brilliant, I have to tell you, regarding their own battles with depression. This demonstrates to the audience how to have a conversation, right, about this. After the show, the audience receives a copy of these 5 questions to use a tool to have their own conversations. So I've got to tell you, these 5 questions are simply brilliant, right? They are simply brilliant. The guy that came up with this, Brad Bonner Jr., when he put these 5 questions together, he really hit something special. So the questions are, my friends, it's all around depression. Questions are, number 1, what does your depression feel like for you, right? What does your depression feel like? Question number 2, what do others do that makes it worse? What do others do that makes it worse? Question number 3, what do others do that makes it better? Question number 4, what do you do that makes it worse? And question number 5, what do you do that makes it better? I tell you, Brad Bonner Jr., comedian, creator of the 1 Degree of Separation, I salute you. This is a fantastic initiative. I'll tell you a little bit about the guy. It says here on his website. A few years ago, I found a suicide note that I had written in the 6th grade. At first, I kind of laughed about it, but then it became very sobering to think how in my 60s I've struggled with this for at least until the 6th grade. And it's only been in the past few years that I've seriously addressed my depression. That note got me started on a quest to put together a comedy show about depression and suicide. I've spent the past 25 years travelling the world, making people laugh. Man, I've been doing stand-up for 25 years as well. I can't believe our paths haven't crossed, but we've crossed now, so I'm very excited to get to meet this guy. Now I'm using my talents for something more personal. It's a time to cast a spotlight that removes the stigma of mental illness. Love your work, Brad. Love your work. So that's it, my friends. You got to check that out. 1 Degree of Separation out of the United States. Brilliant. 1 Degree of Separation. A funny look at depression and suicide, using comedians for suicide prevention in the States. Big fan. And links will be in the show notes. Right, moving on. Last one, our final insight for this episode of Pulse. Bradley Cooper. We all know him. Fantastic actor. Big fan of Bradley. And Bradley's got a new film coming out, and it is entitled Is This Thing On? Is this thing on? Trailer. Bradley Cooper directed comedy drama heading for the New York Film Festival. The official log line for the comedy is as follows. As their marriage quietly unravels, Alex, played by Will Arnett, faces middle age and an impending divorce, seeking new purpose in the New York comedy scene, while Tess, Lara Dern, confronts the sacrifices she has made for their family, forcing them to navigate co-parenting, identity, and whether love can take a new form. So how's that? Getting divorced and thinking, right, I'm going to start doing stand-up as a way of coping with it. So is this thing on? They're really looking forward to this. So there'll be there was a link in the show notes to the trailer and also this story on Deadline. So Bradley Cooper and Arnett actually co-wrote it. The script with Mark Chappelle, British comic John Bisham inspired the movie story, and the comedian will be executive producing. So they got a comedian in there getting involved in it. So awesome. So the last thing here, this is not a midlife crisis, it's a midlife catharsis. Cooper told Vanity Fair, sometimes you realise you're coasting and you've lost your rudder and your North Star in life, and that takes a toll on whoever you're with. So when's it coming out? Let's have a look here. Okay, the feature releasing on December 19 will have its world premiere at the New York Film Festival's It will have its world premiere as the New York Film Festival's closing film, October 10 at the Lincoln Center's Alice Tully Hall. Cooper said the creative team is honoured and humbled to premiere the film at the New York Film Festival since the city serves as the film's backdrop. Awesome. So Bradley Cooper's upcoming film coming out at the end of the year. Is this thing on? Check it out, and I'll probably do a review of it after it comes out. I'm pretty keen to see that with a few comics, actually, to see how that's gone. So anyway, that's it, my friends. That is the 5 insights worth noting for this Pulse episode. So the report card from the National Mental Health Commission's 2024 report card's not great, but it doesn't cost, we talk about cost of living pressures in relation to accessing mental health care, but it doesn't cost anything to look after yourself and reach out to people and be part of your community and look after each other in that way. The 3 overlooked warning signs of suicide, once again, just talking quickly about people, miraculously overcoming their depression or something out of the blue, someone being more generous than usual, or someone starting to estate plan and get their affairs in order. Very complex suicide prevention, so it pays to look out for everything. And then we had a quick chat about being a funny parent. Funny parents in the spotlight, humour in parenting. Does it have a role? Well, clearly it does. And I'm sure there's parents out there that would agree. And then our 4th one was the comedians in the States, 1 Degree of Separation, Brad Bonner Jr., putting together this comedy show using comedians to help with mental health and suicide prevention and dealing with depression. The 5 questions, brilliant. And our final one was, is this thing on? Bradley Cooper, doing it up. Making a film about being a comedian, getting divorced and doing stand-up. Love it. Go, Brad. So that's it, my friends, for this episode of Pulse. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. Please, if you haven't already subscribed or pressed the follow button, do that. That'd be awesome. Or share it with anyone that you feel as they might get something out of this. So, until next time, my friends, please be kind to yourself. Be kind to those around you. I'll talk to you next time. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. The information contained in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes. It is not intended, nor should it ever replace, advice received from a physician or mental health professional. Want more info? Visit thelaughterclinic.com.au. If you enjoyed the episode, please share and subscribe. Thanks again for listening to The Laughter Clinic podcast with your host, Mark McConville.